March 24th, 1998, 5:30 a.m, the Caribbean Sea, somewhere between Aruba and Curacao. Ron Bradley wakes in his cabin aboard the Royal Caribbean cruise ship, Rhapsody of the Seas. He glances at the balcony. His daughter, Amy, is asleep in the lounge chair, peaceful, her cigarettes beside her. He goes back to sleep. 30 minutes later, he wakes again. The chair is empty. Amy is gone. Her cigarettes are gone. But her shoes are still there. Within hours, the ship docks in Curacao. 2,000 passengers disembark, and 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley is nowhere to be found. The Coast Guard searches for 4 days. They find nothing. No body. No evidence she fell overboard. No suicide note. She simply vanished. But here's where this story becomes something else entirely. For the next 20 years, Amy Bradley is seen. A taxi driver spots her frantically searching for a phone. 2 Canadian tourists see her on a beach with aggressive men, one of them matching the description of the last person seen with her on the ship. A US Navy sailor meets a woman in a brothel who whispers, "I'm Amy Bradley, please help me." And in 2005, 7 years after she disappeared, her family receives an email. Attached is a photograph from a sex worker website. The woman in the photo has Amy's face, Amy's bone structure, and the pose is designed to hide every one of Amy's identifying tattoos. The FBI analysed the photo and concluded it was her. But they couldn't track the IP address. The lead went cold. This is the story of a woman who disappeared in plain sight. A case where every answer creates 5 new questions. A mystery that asks, can someone vanish from a ship full of people and still be alive? Imprisoned in the shadows 2 decades later. This is the Amy Lynn Bradley case, and in July 2025, Netflix released a documentary that has reignited the search. Let's go back to the beginning. Welcome to 404, Mystery Found, where we investigate history's greatest unanswered questions. Tonight we are pulling the case files of the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. So settle in. What you are about to hear is not a campfire story. These are documented forensic mysteries where every clue leads to a dead end and every answer only raises a darker question. Act 1. The Cruise, the Night and the Vanishing. Amy Lynn Bradley was born on May 12th, 1974. By March 1998, she was 23 years old, a recent graduate of Longwood University in Virginia. She had just moved into her own apartment. She'd adopted a bulldog named Daisy. She had a new job waiting for her at a computer consulting firm. She had swimming lessons booked, concert tickets purchased. This was not someone planning to disappear. Her father, Ron Bradley, had won an all-expenses-paid Caribbean cruise through his employer. The family, Ron, his wife Iva, Amy, and her younger brother Brad, flew to Puerto Rico to board the Rhapsody of the Seas on March 21st, 1998. The ship was massive, over 900 feet long, 11 decks, capacity for 2,000 passengers. It would sail from Puerto Rico to Aruba, then to Curacao in the Netherlands Antilles. Amy was initially apprehensive about the cruise. She was afraid of heights and nervous about being on the open ocean. But he was excited. Her brother Brad had come home from college. It would be a family trip. From the first day, something felt off. Eva Bradley later recalled that crew members were immediately and unusually attentive to Amy. One waiter in particular. After dinner on the first night, he approached Ron and Iva. He wanted to know where Amy was. Ron asked why. The waiter said, We want to take her to Carlos and Charlie's, a nightclub on the island. Ron told Amy about the invitation. Amy's response was immediate. They're creepy. She stayed on the ship that night, with her family, where she should have been safe. On March 23rd, the ship docked in Aruba. The family spent the day touring the island in a rented jeep. That evening, back on board, Amy and Brad headed to the ship's disco on the 9th floor deck. There was a party. A live band was playing. The band was called Blue Orchid. One of the band members, the bass player, was a man named Alistair Douglas. He went by the nickname Yellow because of his dyed yellow hair. A videographer named Chris Fenwick was on the ship filming entertainment footage for clients. His camera captured Amy and Yellow dancing together. In the video, they dance close. At one point, they appear to hold hands. Amy's brother Brad was there too, participating in a limbo contest. Yellow later claimed he left the party around 1 a.m. But the video evidence and witness testimony tell a different story. The ship's computerized door lock system recorded that Brad returned to the family cabin at 3:35 a.m. Amy followed 5 minutes later. At 3:40 a.m., Brad later said Amy felt slightly unwell. The motion of the ship was making her nauseous. She told him she'd get some fresh air on the balcony. They talked briefly. Brad told her, "I love you." Then he went to sleep. Amy stayed on the balcony. Between 5:15 and 5:30 a.m., Ron Bradley woke and glanced at the balcony. He saw Amy asleep on the lounge chair. He went back to sleep. At 6 a.m., he woke again. The lounge chair was empty. Amy's sandals were still there. Her Marlboro cigarettes, gone. The polo shirt she'd worn the night before was folded inside the cabin. Ron assumed she'd gone for coffee. He didn't wake his wife or son. He went to look for her himself. He couldn't find her. By 7 a.m., the family reported her missing to the ship's crew. The crew refused to make a ship-wide announcement. They said it was too early. They agreed to announce at 7:50 a.m., after most passengers had already disembarked. By then, Curaçao's port was open. 2,000 people were leaving the ship. If Amy had been taken off the ship, she was already gone. Act 2. The investigation and the witnesses. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard launched a 4-day search using helicopters and radar-equipped planes. They found nothing. Royal Caribbean chartered a private boat to continue searching. Still nothing. Initially, authorities suspected Amy had either fallen overboard or died by suicide. But investigators quickly ruled out both theories. Amy was a trained lifeguard, a strong swimmer. The ship was only a short distance from shore, and there was no evidence, no disturbance on the balcony, no signs of a struggle, no note to suggest she jumped. The FBI joined the investigation. They fingerprinted Amy's belongings. They interviewed passengers and crew. And what they uncovered was deeply unsettling. 3 witnesses came forward. They claimed to have seen Amy on the upper deck with Alistair Yellow Douglas between 5:30 and 5:45 a.m. after her father last saw her on the balcony. They said Douglas handed Amy a drink containing a dark liquid. They saw them arrive in the elevator together, and they saw Douglas leave the upper deck alone shortly after 6 a.m. Douglas was immediately interviewed by the FBI. He voluntarily took a polygraph test. The results were inconclusive. There was no physical evidence tying him to Amy's disappearance. No one saw them leave the ship together. The FBI released him. But Amy's brother Brad had a disturbing encounter with Douglas that morning. Brad was sitting by the pool when Douglas approached him. The first thing Douglas said was, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister." Brad was stunned. No ship-wide announcement had been made. How did Douglas know Amy was missing? After his FBI interview, Douglas walked out, smiling with his thumbs up to his band members, like everything was cool. Ron Bradley recalled, "It made me feel like I wanted to strangle him." Royal Caribbean fired Douglas for fraternizing with a passenger. But no charges were ever filed, and then the sightings began. Sighting number 1, the taxi driver, March 24th, 1998. The same day. 1 month after Amy's disappearance, the Bradley family travelled to Curacao to conduct their own search. A taxi driver approached them. He claimed he'd seen a woman matching Amy's description on the morning of March 24th, the day she vanished. He said she was running through a parking lot near the docks, frantically searching for a phone. He remembered her green eyes, which matched the description in the reward poster. The taxi driver's account was never corroborated, but he was insistent. Sighting number 2, the Canadian divers, August 1998, 5 months later. In August 1998, 2 Canadian tourists, including a man named David Carmichael, were at a beach in Curacao called Playa Porto Marie. Carmichael saw a woman who looked exactly like Amy. She had the same tattoos, a Tasmanian devil with a basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a lizard on her navel. The woman was with 2 aggressive men. Carmichael said one of them looked like Alistair Douglas. When Carmichael's friend spoke English, the woman spun around and started walking toward them. But one of the men quickly intercepted her and motioned her away to the beach bar. She kept glancing back at Carmichael as if trying to silently communicate. Carmichael was standing less than 2 feet away from her. He said he was 100% sure it was Amy. The FBI investigated, but Curacao is not under US jurisdiction. They couldn't operate freely on the island. The lead went nowhere. Sighting number 3, the brothel, 1999, 1 year later. In 1999, a retired US Navy officer named Bill Hefner reported that he visited a brothel in Curacao. A woman approached him and said, "I'm Amy Bradley from Virginia, please help me." Hefner gave his account to the FBI. By the time agents arrived to investigate, the brothel had burned to the ground. Sighting number 4, Barbados, 2005, 7 years later. In 2005, a witness reported seeing a woman matching Amy's description in a department store restroom in Barbados. The woman looked distressed. When the witness asked if she needed help, the woman was quickly led away by a man. Each sighting followed a pattern. Amy appearing in public, often near English-speaking tourists, always with controlling men nearby, always looking like she wanted to speak but couldn't. The Bradley family believed their daughter was alive and being held captive. Act 3. The photograph and the trafficking theory. In September 2005, 7 years after Amy vanished, the Bradley family received an email that would change everything. The email came from an anonymous source. It contained photographs from an adult website based in the Caribbean. The woman in the photos was identified as Jazz. She was advertising sexual services. The anonymous sender claimed the woman in the photos was Amy Bradley. Ivor Bradley opened the email. She later described the moment. Seeing the photos, it was a terrible thing, a level of panic. All I could keep thinking is that my daughter? We all looked at it, the nose, the chin and the hair. It took my breath away. The FBI's forensic analysts studied the photographs. They measured the dimensions of the woman's face and compared them to Amy's. Everything matched. The cheekbones, the chin, the proportions. The FBI concluded the woman in the photos was Amy Bradley. But there was a problem. The woman in the photographs was posed in a very specific way. Her hands covered her navel. Her legs were positioned to hide her lower back and ankles. Every single pose concealed the exact locations of Amy's 4 tattoos. Why would someone pose a sex worker to hide identifying marks, unless they knew those marks could identify her? The FBI attempted to trace the website's IP address. They couldn't. The website had been routed through multiple servers, making it untraceable. The FBI even sent an operative to the Caribbean to investigate. They analysed the bed frame in the photo, trying to determine where it was manufactured. They consulted trafficking experts. The investigation led nowhere. Ari Mark, co-director of the 2025 Netflix documentary Amy Bradley is Missing, said, "What's hard to ignore is how seriously the FBI took that photo. They really did chase that down. They brought in trafficking experts. It's hard to ignore." In 2025, after the Netflix documentary was released, internet sleuths uncovered additional photographs of Jazz that weren't shown in the original investigation. One photo shows Jazz from the waist down, with her hand on her leg. Reddit users noticed that the pinky finger on her hand bends slightly inward, exactly like Amy's. Amy's mother had mentioned in the documentary that Amy's pinky fingers curved inward. The woman in the photo has the same trait. Private investigator Anthony Gomez analysed the photos in a 2025 video. He stated, "I did serious research this weekend into this case, and I've got to be honest with you, there's no doubt in my mind that the 2005 photo of that lady is Amy. I'm 100% sure. I'm willing to bet my license on it. But if it was Amy, why couldn't the FBI find her?" Gomez explained, "Usually the life expectancy for girls like this ranges from 3 to 5 years. Then the traffickers will usually kill them. But the fact that photo shows her at an older age, there's no doubt in my mind she was alive at that time. And she was a good earner. That's why they kept her around." The trafficking theory gained momentum. Jim Carey, the Bradley family's private investigator, working pro bono since 2021, believes Amy was held on Curacao before being moved through a corridor connecting the Dutch Caribbean islands to Venezuela. Carey points to a taxi driver known as Daichi, who approached the Bradley family 2 weeks after Amy's disappearance. Daichi claimed Amy was on this island and gave them 3 specific locations rumoured to harbour trafficked women. Daichi later died of cancer, taking his knowledge to the grave, but the most shocking claim came in 2025. Carey revealed that a police clerk from Curacao allegedly confirmed seeing Amy alive as recently as 2016, 18 years after she disappeared. If true, it means Amy Bradley could still be alive, right now. Act 4. The suspects, the theories, and the questions. So what happened to Amy Lynn Bradley? Let's examine the evidence and the theories. Theory number 1. She fell overboard. This was the initial explanation, the simplest answer. Amy fell or jumped from the balcony into the ocean. The problems: Amy was a trained lifeguard and a strong swimmer. The ship was not far from shore. There was no evidence of a struggle on the balcony. Her sandals were neatly placed, suggesting she left voluntarily. A 2010 human jawbone washed ashore in Aruba. Authorities initially thought it might be connected to Amy's case, but they declined to conduct DNA testing. The forensic evidence doesn't support this theory. Theory number 2. Suicide. Amy had a new job, a new apartment, a new dog named Daisy waiting for her at home. She had swimming lessons and concert tickets booked. During college, Amy came out as gay to her family. Her parents were initially disappointed, but her father later said, "It's Amy's life. It wasn't what we would choose for her, but it's her life and we loved her unconditionally." There's no evidence Amy was suicidal. The Netflix documentary ruled this out entirely. Theory number 3, murdered and thrown overboard. Some investigators believe Amy was killed on the ship and her body disposed of at sea. The problem? Why? Who would want her dead? There's no motive, no evidence of enemies, no financial gain. And the only physical evidence ever found connected to the case was the jawbone in Aruba, which was never tested for Amy's DNA. Theory number 4, human trafficking, the leading theory. This is the theory the Bradley family believes. The evidence multiple crew members showed unusual interest in Amy from day one. Waiters invited her to a nightclub in Aruba, the same location where Natalie Holloway disappeared 7 years later. 3 witnesses saw Amy with Alistair Douglas on the upper deck after she supposedly vanished, and saw him hand her a drink. Multiple credible sightings over 20 plus years, always with controlling men. The 2005 photograph analysed and confirmed by the FBI. A 2016 alleged sighting by a Curaçao police clerk. The case remains open because no body has ever been recovered, and that's why people continue to believe Amy is alive. The Alistair Yellow Douglas question. Alistair Douglas has never been charged. He now lives in Grenada, where he runs a church and works as an exorcist and reverend. In September 2024, true crime investigator James Renner interviewed Douglas. Douglas maintains his innocence and claims the case destroyed his career, the tab. He said, "I've lost contracts on other ships. Once my name was entered, they would say I had something to do with this missing girl, and I lost opportunities." Douglas's own daughter, Amika Douglas, appeared in the Netflix documentary. She said she's not convinced her father had nothing to do with the case. She mentioned finding a bag of photos of white women in his possession. After the cruise, women who were not her mother. The FBI found no evidence to charge him, but he remains a person of interest in the minds of many. The Royal Caribbean silence. Royal Caribbean has never fully cooperated with the Bradley family's investigation. Cruise lines protect their reputations. Missing person cases are bad for business. Jim Carey, the Bradley family's investigator, said security on the ship in 1998 was lax to the point of insanity. He believes the trafficking involved crew members, local smugglers, and possibly corrupt officials. Act 5. The search continues. 27 years later. On March 15, 2010, 12 years to the day after her disappearance, a Virginia court officially declared Amy Lynn Bradley dead. But her family has never accepted that. The FBI still lists Amy on their missing persons website. A reward of up to $25,000 is offered for information leading to the resolution of her case. The Bradley family has offered $250,000 for her safe return. In July 2025, Netflix released Amy Bradley is Missing, a 3-part documentary directed by Ari Mark and Phil Lott. The series reignited global interest in the case. Mark told Time magazine, "I've gotten to the point where I have to believe she's alive. People will judge me for that. But if we're telling a remarkable story, I think there's just as much of a chance that there's a remarkable answer." In November 2025, new developments emerged. A woman named Rebecca Alif came forward, claiming she met Jazz, the woman from the 2005 photos, in 1996, 2 years before Amy disappeared. Alif said she lived in a Florida apartment complex and regularly saw Jazz with a controlling man who wouldn't let her speak to anyone. If Alif's testimony is accurate, it raises a chilling possibility. The woman in the 2005 photos is not Amy Bradley, but someone else who was also trafficked. Or it means Amy was already trapped in a trafficking network before she even boarded that cruise. The truth remains elusive. Amy Lynn Bradley's case is a paradox. She vanished in the most public way possible. From a ship full of witnesses, surveillance cameras, door logs, and crew members. Yet for 27 years, no one has been able to definitively say what happened to her. She is either dead, her body lost at sea, her disappearance a tragic accident compounded by bureaucratic incompetence, or she is alive, somewhere in the Caribbean or South America, or moved through a global trafficking network to a place no one is looking. The sightings suggest the latter. The forensic photo analysis suggests the latter. The pattern of control, the concealed tattoos, the terrified glances, all of it points to a woman trying to escape, but unable to. One thing makes this case remain open. A body has never been recovered, and as long as that's true, there is hope. Amy's father, Ron, died in 2021 without ever knowing what happened to his daughter. Her mother, Iva, and brother Brad continue the search. If you were on the Rhapsody of the Seas in March 1998, if you were in Curacao, Aruba, or Barbados in the years after, if you've seen something, heard something, or know something, the FBI is still listening. Because somewhere, in the back of a bar or a brothel or a locked room, there might be a woman with green eyes and 4 tattoos, waiting for someone to recognize her, waiting to come home. You've been listening to 404 Mystery Found. Subscribe so you don't miss our next case. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.